The moment arrives not with fanfare, but with a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in the atmosphere. You've been patient, you've been consistent, you've held the line of your own integrity not as a tactic, but as a practice of self-respect. And then you see it, in someone whose emotional language has been defined by distance, a new syllable forms. It might be a glance held a beat too long, heavy with unspoken history. It could be a sentence that finally holds a personal truth, offered not as a weapon or a plea, but as a simple, raw fact. It might be the quiet admission, "I missed you," or the vulnerable question, "What are you thinking?" after a comfortable silence. It's the sound of internal armor, meticulously maintained for a lifetime, developing a hairline crack. This is the pivotal juncture. This is the crossroads where destinies of connection are decided, not in dramatic confrontations, but in the quiet, internal choices that follow. For the individual opening up, often one with avoidant tendencies, this is an act of profound courage. Closeness is not a casual pastime for them, it is a high-stakes emotional gamble. What feels like a small step to an outsider, a shared memory, a moment of physical tenderness without withdrawal, an expression of a personal needs, for them, a monumental leap across a psychological chasm. They are not handing you the keys to the kingdom. They are offering you a single, delicate seed, cupped in trembling hands, and here is the brutal, beautiful truth. What you do in the immediate aftermath of receiving that seed determines everything. Most connections falter here, not through malice, but through a fundamental misunderstanding of the moment's currency. Our own fears, often masquerading as love or excitement, hijack the process. The moment we sense the warmth of their proximity, our own ancient anxieties, of abandonment, of unworthiness, of not being enough, can surge to the surface. In our relief and hope, we make the catastrophic error of confusing their vulnerability for a green light. We move from receiving to taking, we grab, we rush. We fill the sacred, silent space they've created with our own noise. Questions about the future, declarations of our feelings, unspoken demands for reciprocity or label. We seek to immediately mortgage this present moment gift for a down payment on a guaranteed future. In doing so, we unconsciously recreate the very prison from which they are tentatively seeking parole. The loss of autonomy, the smothering weight of expectation, the terror of being consumed by another's needs. We mistake their offering of a seed for an invitation to harvest a forest we have already imagined in our minds, and feeling the shadow of that imagined forest, the pressure, the projection, the loss of self, they instinctively retreat. The door doesn't slam, it simply, quietly swings shut again. The connection isn't broken, it is frozen in place, perhaps forever. Your mission, therefore, is not to explain the future or extract promises. It is a far more demanding and noble task to create emotional safety without demanding emotional certainty. This is the essence of emotional leadership. This is love disciplined by wisdom. It is the ability to hold a profound paradox, to care deeply without clinging, to hope without demanding, to be intimately present without projecting a narrative onto the unfolding story. Your power lies not in pursuit, but in profound, grounded presence. The anatomy of the seed, understanding the avoidant leap to hold this space correctly, one must first appreciate the seismic internal event that has just occurred for the other person. For someone with an avoidant adaptation, the self is not a given. It is a fortress, constantly under perceived threat from enmeshment. Their early blueprint for love often involved care that came with strings, intimacy that meant control, or needs that were met with disappointment or intrusion. Consequently, they learned that survival, emotional and sometimes physical, depended on rigorous self-sufficiency and the maintenance of strict boundaries. Vulnerability, for them, is not simply feeling exposed, it is feeling endangered. To share an emotion, a need, or a piece of their inner world is to hand someone a piece of their fortress wall. In their lived experience, this has too often resulted in that piece being used as a lever to pry them open further, or as a weakness to be exploited. So, when they offer you a seed, a moment of authentic openness, they are doing so while every alarm system in their psyche is screaming in protest. They are watching you not just with their eyes, but with their entire nervous system to see what you will do with it. Will you treat it as a precious, self-contained gift, or will you treat it as a lever? Will you see it as a complete moment in itself, or will you see it as a stepping stone to your own agenda? Your response must answer those silent, screaming questions with a resounding, energetic "you are safe here." The saboteur within, why we grab when we should ground before we can master the response. We must confront the internal saboteur that drives the grabbing reflex. This impulse typically springs from two intertwined roots: anxiety and fantasy. 1. The anxious reflex. For those who lean anxious in attachment, closeness is the antidote to a deep, seated fear of abandonment. The avoidance opening up is like a lifeline thrown to a drowning person. The natural, panic-driven impulse is to clutch it with all one's strength and scramble frantically towards the boat. This manifests as pressuring for more contact, seeking verbal reassurance. Does this mean you love me? Or becoming hyper-vigilant to any sign of subsequent retreat. This energy of desperation, however understandable, is toxic to the budding connection. It confirms the avoidant's deepest fear, that their vulnerability will summon a bottomless need they are expected to fill, annihilating them in the process. 2. The fantasy reflex. This is more subtle but equally damaging. In the absence of consistent closeness, we build entire fantasy relationships in our minds. We have scripted the conversations, the milestones, the happy ending. When reality finally offers a glimpse of connection, we mistake it for the opening scene of our internal movie. We rush to align the real person with the fantasy character, eager to fast forward to the next act. We stop seeing them and start seeing the potential of them. This projection is a form of profound disrespect. It ignores the complex, real human in front of you and replaces them with an idea. The avoidant, exquisitely sensitive to being used as a prop in someone else's drama, will feel this objectification instantly and withdraw. Both reflexes, anxiety and fantasy, are forms of leaving the present moment. They are a rejection of the beautiful, fragile, real gift being offered in favor of a past fear or a future illusion. To be present is to consciously choose to disarm these reflexes. The art of grounded response, becoming the emotional anchor. So, how do you respond when the armor cracks? You do not flinch, and you do not leap. You ground. You become the emotional anchor in what feels, to them, like a turbulent sea. 1. Breathe and regulate your nervous system. The first and most important response is internal. Before you speak or act, tend to your own physiology. Feel your feet on the floor. Take a slow, deep breath that expands your diaphragm. Your calm nervous system is your greatest asset. It communicates safety on a primal, wordless level. When you regulate yourself, you stop the transmission of anxious energy. You become a still point. For someone whose internal world is often a cacophony of alert signals, this stillness is not boring, it is profoundly magnetic. It is a place where they can rest, too, receive, don't interpret, meet the vulnerability with simple, warm acknowledgement. Do not immediately analyze its meaning for the relationship. If they share a feeling, try, "Thank you for telling me that. It means a lot that you'd share that with me." If they offer a tender gesture, receive it with a soft smile and gentle eye contact. A silent "I see this and I appreciate it." The goal is to validate the act of sharing itself, not to dissect the content or use it as a launchpad. Your response should be a mirror that reflects their courage back to them, not a prism that fractures it into a spectrum of expectations. 3. Match the pace, don't set the pace. If they offer a sentence, respond with a sentence, not a soliloquy. If they lean in for a brief touch, reciprocate with matching tenderness and duration. Don't pull them into an engulfing embrace. This is the practice of pacing. It signals that you are walking beside them, not dragging them behind you or running ahead and waiting impatiently. You are demonstrating, through action, that you respect their internal rhythm. This tells them their autonomy is not only safe with you, it is sacred to you. 4. Hold space with comfortable silence. After a moment of vulnerability, there is often a heavy, pregnant silence. The amateur fills this silence with chatter to alleviate their own discomfort. The emotional leader learns to inhabit this silence comfortably. It is in this quiet that integration happens. It allows the shared moment to settle into their system as a positive experience, not an overwhelming one. A peaceful silence after intimacy says, "We can just be here together. This doesn't need to become anything else. It is enough." 5. Resist the urge to fix or deepen. When someone shares something painful from their past or a current fear, the instinct is to offer solutions, cheerleading, or to share an even deeper story of our own to show empathy. With an avoidant, this often backfires. Problem solving can feel dismissive of the emotion, and instantly matching their depth can feel like emotional one-upmanship or pressure to keep escalating. Instead, practice empathetic witnessing. That sounds incredibly difficult. "I'm so sorry you went through that." Full stop. Let the emotion hang in the air, acknowledged and contained. Your job is not to fix their history, it is to be a safe harbor for their present. The alchemy of witnessing without pursuit. This is the core alchemy. You are there to witness them, not to win them. Winning implies a conquest, a closing of the deal. Witnessing implies pure, attentive presence. When they feel truly seen, their strength, their fragility, their complexity, without the accompanying agenda of capture, something miraculous begins to happen. They start to disentangle the ancient, knotted association in their psyche. Closeness equals loss of self. In the laboratory of your grounded presence, they conduct a new experiment. They offer a small piece of themselves, the seed, and observe the results. What they find is not an encroaching vine, but fertile, welcoming soil. They find you not grabbing, but gratefully receiving. They find their autonomy not only intact, but respected. They find that the space between you is not being filled with demands, but held with reverence. In this environment, a revolutionary idea begins to form, perhaps for the first time. Maybe closeness isn't a trap. Maybe it's a form of freedom, freedom to be known, freedom to not be perfect, freedom to have needs without being burdensome. This is the paradigm shift that changes everything. You become the safe space they never had, not by being perfect, but by being profoundly, consistently present, by mastering the art of receiving the seed, by grounding, pacing, and witnessing. You do not just prevent a retreat. You lay the foundation for a trust that is built not on promises, but on lived, repeated experience. You teach their nervous system, one gentle interaction at a time, that your presence is a place of peace, not pressure. And from that foundation, something real and resilient can finally begin to grow. Part 2, Cultivating the Forest, the Discipline of Steady Presence. 2005. 100 words. Receiving the seed with grace is the critical first act, but it is only the beginning. A seed, however carefully accepted, will wither if the environment is not consistently nurturing. The journey from that first fragile moment of openness to a sustained, secure connection requires a different kind of work, the disciplined cultivation of an ecosystem where trust can take root and flourish. This phase is less about the acute, careful response to vulnerability and more about the chronic, daily practice of emotional leadership. It is about building a fire, not chasing lightning. From moment to momentum, the danger of expectation after a break. Through moment, the human mind, craving narrative and security, naturally shifts into expectation mode. We think, finally, now things will be different. We begin to expect the newfound openness to become the new baseline. We wait for the next step, the next confession, the next sign of deepening. This shift from gratitude to expectation is a poison to the budding connection. While your words may remain supportive, your energy undergoes a fundamental change. You move from being present in the now to being mentally anchored in an imagined future. For the avoidant individual, whose senses are finely tuned to detect emotional pressure, this shift is as loud as a shout. They may not cognitively think, "They expect more from me now," but they will feel it, a subtle tension, a hint of waiting, a trace of disappointment if the next interaction is more casual. This feeling recreates the very dynamic they fear, that their value is conditional on their performance of intimacy. Their openness, instead of being a free gift, now feels like a new bar they are expected to meet. The instinct, therefore, is to lower the bar by pulling back. Your discipline, then, is to actively resist the narrative mind. After a moment of closeness, you must consciously return to zero. Do not build upon it mentally. Treat each interaction as its own sovereign event. The mantra is, "This is beautiful. I am here for this. I do not need more than this." This is not detachment. It is the highest form of respect for reality. It allows the connection to breathe and evolve organically, without the suffocating weight of your projected storyline. The currency of trust. Consistency over intensity for someone whose model of love may have been chaotic, intense bursts of passion followed by withdrawal, or care that was intermittent and unreliable. The most healing gift you can offer is predictable, steady warmth. Avoidants do not trust intensity. Intensity is flashy, overwhelming, and often unsustainable. It triggers their alarm systems because it feels engulfing and signals potential instability. What they learn to trust, slowly and profoundly, is consistency. Consistency is quiet. It is the daily, low-grade warmth of a fire, not the terrifying, beautiful blast of lightning. Your task is to become that steady fire. This means your emotional availability should have a stable baseline, not wild fluctuations based on their openness or withdrawal. Your respect for their boundaries, time, space, emotional pace remains constant, whether they are distant or close. Your affirmations and care are offered freely, not as rewards for intimacy or punishments for distance. You show up as your grounded self day after day, without neediness or drama. This consistency does several powerful things. First, it allows their nervous system to de-alert. They learn that your presence is not a threat or a demand. It is a reliable feature of their landscape. Second, it builds trust through predictability. They learn the rules of engagement with you are fair, respectful, and non-punitive. Third, and most importantly, it severs the link between intimacy and chaos. They begin to associate closeness with peace, not with roller coaster intensity. The fire's steady heat convinces them it's safe to come near and stay a while, holding space, vs. filling space. The power of restraint. As the connection develops, there will be more moments of silence, more spaces between words and actions. The anxious or insecure impulse is to fill these spaces, with conversation, with activity, with reassurance. We mistake silence for awkwardness or distance, and we rush to bridge it, often with our own noise. The practice of emotional leadership involves learning the profound art of holding space. Holding space means being fully, comfortably present while allowing the other person, and the relationship itself, the psychological room to simply exist. It is the opposite of emotional claustrophobia. When they are quiet, you can be quiet without anxiety. When they are contemplative, you don't probe. When there is an emotional lull, you don't panic and try to manufacture intimacy. This restraint is a powerful communicator. It says, "You are allowed to have your inner world, and I don't need to be let in every second. This connection can breathe. It doesn't need to be constantly fed. I am whole and secure enough to be with you in stillness." For an avoidant, this is liberating. It means the relationship is not a hungry entity that constantly consumes their energy. It means they can be in it without feeling on all the time. By holding space, you protect the autonomy they cherish, and in doing so, you make the shared space a place they choose to inhabit, not a place they feel obligated to fill. Walking alongside, not pulling. The rhythm of co-creation, a secure, mature relationship, is not a pursuit. It is a parallel walk. The goal is not to pull your partner to your destination or to be pulled to theirs. The goal is to walk together, matching strides, sometimes talking, sometimes in silence, navigating the terrain as a team. This requires you to relinquish control over the timeline and the outcome. It means embracing the rhythm of the connection itself. Some days the rhythm will be lively with conversation and connection. Other days it will be slow and quiet. Your job is to attune to that rhythm and move with it, not against it. If they pull back slightly, a natural part of the avoidant dance, even as they heal, you do not chase. You maintain your steady warmth and your own life. Chasing confirms their fear of engulfment. Holding your ground and respecting their need for space confirms your trustworthiness. It demonstrates that your love is not contingent on constant togetherness. This is where you practice walking with. You are present, you are engaged, but you are not attached to their hip. You have your own path, your own passions, your own inner fulfillment. This self-containment is incredibly attractive and reassuring. It proves you are not a vortex that will suck them in. You are a whole person inviting another whole person to share the journey. The relationship becomes a place you both go, not a thing you are both in. Becoming the safe space, the integration of inner work. Ultimately, this entire process, receiving the seed, providing consistency, holding space, walking alongside, is only possible if you have done your own inner work. You cannot become an emotional anchor for someone else if you are secretly terrified of being adrift yourself. You cannot offer freedom if you are internally clinging. Becoming the safe space for them requires you to first be a safe space for yourself. This means self-regulation, mastering the ability to soothe your own anxiety, loneliness, and fear of abandonment without making their behavior responsible for your emotional state. Self-validation, deriving your sense of worth from within, not from their validation or the status of the relationship. Letting go of the savior complex, understanding you cannot fix their avoidant patterns. You can only provide a safe, healthy environment where they may choose to heal themselves. Your job is to be a partner, not a therapist. Embracing non-attachment, this is not indifference. It is the deep spiritual understanding that you can love someone profoundly without needing them to act a certain way for you to be okay. It is wanting them but not needing them to fill a void in you. When you operate from this place of inner fullness, your energy transforms. You radiate peace, not lack. You offer love as a gift, not as a negotiation. You become someone who is not draining to be around, but energizing. For an avoidant, this is the ultimate safety. They sense that being close to you will not diminish them. It might even allow them to be more fully themselves. The liberation of real love. This journey is not about manipulating an avoidant person into staying. It is about evolving yourself into a person capable of a mature, secure love. It is about trading control for alignment, pursuit for presence, and desperation for devotion. When you learn to walk this path, when you can receive vulnerability with grounded grace and cultivate connection with patient consistency, you achieve something extraordinary. You stop trying to keep someone. Instead, you liberate them. You liberate them from the old story that love is dangerous. You liberate them to explore closeness without fear. And in that liberation, you liberate yourself from the prison of your own anxious needs and fantasies. Real intimacy begins not when two halves cling together, but when two whole people choose to stand close, each breathing freely, each honoring the other's space, each warmed by the steady, reliable fire they have built together. It is built on rhythm, not rush, on truth, not tactics, and it grows slowly and surely from a single, carefully tended seed into a forest that can withstand any storm. This is the breakthrough. This is the discipline of love. And it changes everything. In the sacred stillness following a moment of shared vulnerability, a new phase begins. The seed has been offered and received. Its potential is held in the palm of your connection. Now begins the quiet, often unglamorous work of cultivation. This is where true emotional architecture is built, not with grand declarations, but with the daily mortar of consistency, presence, and profound self-discipline. If the first moment was about not crushing the seed, this enduring phase is about becoming the ecosystem in which it can, of its own volition, unfurl toward the sun. The seduction of the narrative and the tyranny of expectation after a breakthrough, the mind, craving coherence and security, instinctively seeks to write the next chapter. It wants to label the progress, to cement the gain. We feel the intoxicating pull of hope and think, now we're getting somewhere, now things will be different. This mental shift, from experiencing the moment to projecting a future onto it, is the most insidious saboteur of deepening trust. You move from a state of gratitude, this is a gift, to one of expectation, this is a new standard. While your words may remain gentle, your energy undergoes a fundamental transformation. A subtle pressure infiltrates the space between you. You may find yourself waiting for a repeat performance, measuring the next interaction against the benchmark of intimacy just set, feeling a faint pang of disappointment if they return to a more casual demeanor. For the avoidant individual, whose entire nervous system is a finely tuned barometer for emotional demand, this shift is deafening. They may not cognitively articulate, they expect more from me now, but they feel the invisible weight of anticipation. The openness that was a freely given gift suddenly feels like a debt to be repaid, a new line in the job description of being with you. Their vulnerability, instead of being a point of connection, becomes a precedent. And the instinctive response to perceived expectation is to reestablish distance, to lower the thermostat, to reclaim autonomy by withdrawing from the unspoken contract. Therefore, your paramount discipline in this phase is narrative disarmament. You must consciously, deliberately return to zero after every moment of closeness. Treat each day, each interaction as its own sovereign entity. The practice is to internally whisper, that was then, this is now, I hold no ledger. This is not spiritual bypassing or emotional amnesia. It is the deepest form of respect for the human being in front of you, who is not a character in your love story, but a complex, fluid person showing up as they are, moment by moment. By releasing the story of progress, you make room for the truth of the present. You allow the connection to breathe, to wax and wane naturally, without the suffocating burden of your plotted trajectory. The alchemy of safety, consistency as the antidote to chaos for an individual whose blueprint for connection is often etched with inconsistency, where care was intermittent, love was conditional, or attention came in overwhelming bursts. The most profound healing agent is not passionate intensity, but predictable, gentle warmth. Avoidants have a deep, often unconscious distrust of intensity. The dramatic gesture, the flood of emotion, the lightning bolt of moment, these feel engulfing and signal instability. They associate such intensity with loss of control and eventual abandonment. What their nervous system learns to trust, with glacial slowness and immense relief, is consistency. Consistency is the slow, steady heat of a banked fire, reliable, life-giving, and non-threatening. Your mission is to become that fire. This manifests as emotional predictability. Your mood, your affection, and your basic kindness are not contingent on their proximity or openness. You are not sunny when they are close and stormy when they are distant. You maintain an even, warm emotional climate, boundary respect as a constant. Your respect for their need for time, space, and processing isn't a tactic you employ when they pull back. It's a foundational principle of your engagement, equally present when they are close. The absence of transaction, your kindness, your texts, your acts of service are offered freely as expressions of your character and your care. They are not rewards for good behavior intimacy, nor punishments for perceived slights distance. The integrity of presence, you show up as your grounded, authentic self, not performing, not chasing, not manipulating, day after quiet day. This unwavering consistency performs a silent magic. First, it de-escalates the threat response. Their amygdala, constantly scanning for danger, begins to classify your presence as safe. No sudden movements detected. Second, it builds trust through reliability. They learn, through repetitive experience, that the rules of engagement with you are transparent and fair. You are a known quantity in a world that has often felt unpredictably hostile or engulfing. Third, and most transformative, it severs the ancient association between intimacy and chaos. They begin to tether the feeling of closeness to a sensation of peace, stability, and freedom. The fire's steady glow convinces them it's safe to sit nearby and eventually to rest. The sacred pause, holding space as an active practice as the connection establishes a rhythm. There will be expanses of silence, gaps in conversation, pauses between meetings. The untrained heart often misinterprets these spaces as voids to be filled, with questions, with plans, with affection, with noise. We fear that silence equals stagnation, that space equals disinterest. The advanced practice of emotional leadership is holding space. This is not a passive state of waiting. It is an active, generous, and deeply respectful stance. It means being fully, comfortably present while consciously allowing the other person, and the relationship itself, room to simply exist, to breathe, to integrate. It is the practice of non-intrusion. When they are quiet, you can be quiet without your own anxiety screaming that you must fix it. When they are in a contemplative or inward mood, you don't probe with "what are you thinking?" When the energy between you is calm and still, you don't mistake it for a lull that needs to be jazzed up with forced intimacy. This disciplined restraint communicates volumes. You are entitled to your interiority. Your inner world is yours, and I honor its boundaries. I do not need to colonize your every thought. This connection has its own breath. It can sustain periods of quiet. It does not need to be constantly fed with stimulation or intensity to be alive. I am complete enough to be with you in stillness. My sense of worth and connection is not dependent on constant verbal or physical validation. For the avoidant, this is profoundly liberating. It means the relationship is not a high-maintenance organism that constantly consumes their precious emotional and psychic energy. It means they can be in relation without being constantly on stage. By holding space, you protect the autonomy that is the bedrock of their security. In safeguarding their freedom, you make the shared space not a cage, but a garden they voluntarily choose to tend. The parallel walk, co-creation over control. A mature, secure bond is not a pursuit, nor is it a rescue mission. It is a parallel walk. The objective is not to pull your partner onto your path toward your envisioned destination, nor to be dragged onto theirs. The objective is to walk side by side, matching strides, navigating the terrain together, sometimes talking, sometimes in companionable silence. This requires a radical relinquishment of control over both the timeline and the ultimate shape of the relationship. It demands that you surrender to the organic rhythm of the connection itself. Some days, the rhythm will be a lively allegro of shared laughter and deep conversation. Other days, it will be a slow, quiet adagio of separate pursuits and gentle coexistence. Your task is to become exquisitely attuned to this rhythm and to move in harmony with it, not to fight against it with your own metronome of need. When they inevitably take a step back, a natural and necessary part of the dance for someone integrating closeness, you do not panic and leap forward. You hold your ground, you maintain your warmth, your integrity, and the vibrant fullness of your own life. Chasing them into their retreat confirms their deepest fear, that their autonomy is not respected, that you are a force that will encroach upon their necessary solitude. Holding your steady center, however, communicates unwavering trustworthiness. It demonstrates that your love is not a net meant to trap, but a harbor that remains safe and open, regardless of the tides. This is the essence of walking with. You are present, you are engaged, you are reliable, but you are not fused. You have your own path, your own passions, your own sources of joy and fulfillment that exist independently of the relationship. This state of self-containment is perhaps the most powerfully attractive and reassuring quality you can embody. It proves conclusively that you are not a black hole of need that will absorb them. You are a whole, radiant planet inviting another whole planet into a shared orbit. The relationship becomes a place you both go to share your light, not a thing you are both in to escape your own darkness. The inner sanctum, becoming the safe space by first building your own ultimately, this entire majestic architecture, the graceful receiving, the unwavering consistency, the respectful space, holding, the parallel walking, rests on a single, non-negotiable foundation, your own inner work. You cannot become an unshakable anchor for another if you are secretly terrified of the storm yourself. You cannot offer the gift of freedom if you are internally chained by neediness. To become the safe space for them, you must first be the safe space for yourself. This is the heart of the matter. This involves mastering self-regulation, developing the capacity to soothe your own ancient anxieties, the fear of abandonment, the ache of loneliness, the panic of uncertainty, without outsourcing that job to your partner. Their behavior is not your emotional regulatory toolkit. Cultivating self-validation, deriving your sense of worth, lovability, and enoughness from your own integrity, your own actions, your own self-compassion. You are not a blank check waiting for their signature of approval. Releasing the savior narrative, understanding with crystalline clarity that you cannot heal their avoidant patterns, you are not their therapist. You can only be a healthy, secure, loving partner who provides an environment where they may feel safe enough to undertake their own healing. Your role is witness and companion, not surgeon. Embracing non-attachment, this is the pinnacle. It is not indifference. It is the profound spiritual understanding that you can love someone with your entire being without needing a specific outcome from them in order for you to be at peace. It is the differentiation between wanting them and needing them to fill a void within you. It is love as a free, flowing stream, not a desperate clutch. When you operate from this place of inner fullness and integration, your energy undergoes a fundamental alchemy. You cease to radiate lack, the subtle vibration of need, hunger, and uncertainty. Instead, you emanate peace, the steady frequency of wholeness, trust, and grounded presence. You become someone who is not draining to be around, but energetically nourishing. For the avoidant, this is the ultimate safety. They sense, perhaps for the first time, that moving closer to you will not diminish their light. It might actually allow both lights to burn more brightly without competition or consumption. The liberation, where love and freedom become one. This journey, in its truest sense, is not a strategy to get or keep an avoidant partner. That is the old language of lack. This is the path of evolving yourself into a person capable of a mature, secure, and liberating love. It is the alchemical process of trading control for alignment, pursuit for profound presence, and the desperation of childhood wounds for the devoted choice of an awakened adult. When you learn to walk this path, when you can meet vulnerability with grounded grace and nurture connection with the disciplined patience of a gardener, you achieve something far greater than a stable relationship. You enact a profound liberation. You liberate them. You free them from the archaic, survival, level belief that love is a dangerous transaction that costs the self. You create a sanctuary where they can tentatively, then confidently explore the terrain of closeness without the old fear of being consumed or lost. And in that very act, you liberate yourself. You break free from the prison of your own anxious narratives, from the exhausting cycle of chase and withdraw, from the desperate need for external validation to feel internally whole. You step into the authority of your own emotional sovereignty. Real, lasting intimacy begins in this liberated space. It does not commence when two incomplete halves cling together in a fearful grip. It blossoms when two whole people, each rooted in their own worth, each respectful of their own and the other's autonomy, choose to stand close. They share warmth, they weather storms, they grow alongside one another, each breathing freely, each honoring the necessary space between, each sustained by the steady, reliable fire they have chosen to tend. Together,